I went to see David the Good. He lives in paradise, growing his own food.
Hey, welcome back. I'm David the Good. A lot of us have heard of vertical gardening. I was reading a book on vertical gardening, and vertical gardening is always these things. You build things and you grow things on top of other things, right? You put in trellises, you put in strings, you put in topsy-turvy planters, you hang gutters on the side of your house, that sort of thing. The idea is you get more growing in the space compared to horizontally just growing stuff on the ground in regular beds. But vertical gardening doesn't actually require you to deliberately build stuff. In this garden right here, which I built, this is a permaculture garden. We're taking advantage of vertical space by patterning this on a small way after the layers of a forest. So we have a canopy, a sub-canopy, ground cover layer, and even some vine layers mixed in. But it doesn't require all that fiddly buying stuff and building things. We're harvesting as much sunlight as possible and putting it in the space. So I'm just going to show you around and explain how some of this works. If you don't fill in all the spaces, nature will fill it in for you. In the case of these climbing bindweed vines, which are a total pain, I should have a good vine of my own, but we haven't gotten there yet. And you're always going to fight the weeds to some extent. But when you fill in the layers, there's less space and less sunlight for invaders to come in and cause trouble. So this right here is our canopy layer. This is the top. This is emerging over the top. This right here is our sub-canopy. Now these guys are actually pretty tall. This cassava right here is at the same height as this Cavendish banana. But this guy is not a super short one. He's going to get another 4, 5, 6 feet above this next. And then if we go down a little lower, this is kind of our sub-canopy, or our herbaceous layer. This is Tanya, Xanthozylum, what is it? Xanthozoma sagittifolia. Just remember that, folks. This is an edible elephant ear variety. It's called Tanya sometimes. And then right here we have another one. This is also sub-canopy layer. This is Chaya, Mexican tree spinach. And down here on the ground, I actually have another herb. Gotta get the bindweed off it. Everybody deals with bindweed. Doesn't matter how good your system is, the bindweed will find it. But this right here is a variegated leaf Cuban oregano, which is just a really cool Plectranthus amboinicus, in case you wanted to know. But if I said, hey, you know what, I need some more of these actually propagate from cuttings. So all I gotta do is knock these leaves off like this and stick this puppy in the ground, and I can continue my layer. So in these two beds right here, this is a very simple design. This is a 4-foot wide bed, which was dug and then planted, a 4-foot wide bed, which was dug and then planted, and then there's a 2-foot wide in between. So sometimes what I come through and do is I just go like this. The stuff that's overhanging the path too much, I don't want that. What is that nonsense? I don't want that yam vine right there. These sweet potatoes, they're starting to get a little too crazy. Tumble them back in over there. You know, up, there's a weed. So all the stuff that's coming out, there's a weed, I don't want that. That's a little invader, grass invader. So the stuff that's kind of coming through here and causing trouble, I just chop it and throw it back on the ground, and then it's going to rot down and feed the rest. By the way, Caladium is a weed in the tropics. So if you paid $5.99 for one of these at Walmart, man, come down here and pick them for free. But Then I've also got these flowers, and these flowers kind of get in the way sometimes, so I'm like, hey, I can either stick this in a vase, or I could feed it back to the ground. But the flowers bring in pollinators, we got butterflies coming through here all the time, and they also provide an extra space for good predatory insects to hang out. So if you've got a wider variety of species, the bad guys get confused. So let me show you a little younger setup of this system so you can kind of get an idea of what this area looked like a month or two ago. So the beds we were just at are back there, but here we cleared out our tomatoes. We had a big tomato project going. The tomatoes are done, and we started building these permaculture, polyculture gardens. Here I actually broke down and I made some trellises. These are a prickly yam variety, a climbing yam. And I said, man, somebody brought me a whole bunch of them once, so I stuck them right in. But ideally, I would have something planted here for them to grow on, but I don't right now. So this is kind of acting like canopy at this point. Eventually, this beautiful variegated plantain, that is the coolest looking thing. This guy is going to get way up here, and then bit by bit, other things will grow underneath. So like right here, we've got jalapeno peppers. But in this bed is more patterned appropriately after the first beds that we did. And in this case, this papaya right here is canopy. This guy will get 12 feet or so tall. This banana right here will get 8 to 12, maybe even 16 feet tall, depending on the variety. I can't remember which one. I planted about 10 different varieties. I'm always planting. And then down here, just the other day, I planted more cassava. So these canes here are going to grow into those big cassava bushes, fill the space up. Right now, at this moment, I can come in here and plant peppers or a quick crop like lettuces and just throw them right through here while we have the sunlight. But as these cassava get taller, they're going to basically fill this entire space. If I wanted to be able to keep a canopy and a sub-canopy and a ground cover layer very happy in here, I would have to space this stuff a little wider apart, because when these bush out, they're going like this. So ideally, I would have maybe these guys and then one cassava, and then on either side, I could plant some peppers, I could plant sweet potatoes or something else. But I really want cassava because it's a top survival crop, and this is a good space to plant it. So the cassava is a priority for me, whereas the small herbs and other things are not at this point.
In this bed, the banana or plantain or whatever this is, it's one or the other, is going to be our canopy, but the amaranth is growing pretty tall. So we're going to come through and give it a haircut. And it just so happens that I need this for dinner anyway, so it's perfect. Just come through and make it just shorter than the banana so it doesn't shade out our banana. And I'll cut off this big stem part when I get to the kitchen. I'm only going to use the leaves. David doesn't tell you that, does he? He doesn't tell you what he's going to do when he gets to the kitchen. That's because he's not the one in the kitchen. So this is a bonus because it's me. I hope you appreciate it. So before, when we came through here, you couldn't even, I didn't even remember that this banana was here on this side because the amaranth was so tall. You see how tall it is over there? I forgot that it was here, but you come through and you cut it down and found a banana that you didn't even remember you had.
And this area right here, our canopy, is actually these vines. These are Lima Beans, which are a perennial, believe it or not, in the tropics. Phaseolus lanatus. And these Lima Beans are growing as a canopy, and all I did was ram these rebar stakes into the ground and then run a nice piece of strong wire across the top. And it's still not enough. I need it even stronger. I need like steel cables to hold these vines up because they're absolutely getting insane. So right here we've got the Lima Bean, and then right here is Hyacinth Bean, which is also known as Lab. But you gotta watch out for this one because it's got these little stinging hairs on it, and it will burn you. It'll leave burns on your skin if you run past it. So these guys, when they start to come out, you know, into the pathway, I've got to send them back around so they don't sting any kids or my beautiful wife. You go back up here. But over time, what I could do is grow something for the beans to grow up. If I had tall enough plants that were kind of going through here, the beans could climb up on top of them and they could be canopy with a vine layer in it. But instead, we just went with a really simple trellis and let these guys go up. And then below here, we've got the occasional zinnias going on. And then down here at the ground cover layer, we have sweet potatoes. So these sweet potatoes are filling in all this space, and this is going up. So we're effectively getting two crops from the same space. And occasionally we get these volunteer nitrogen fixing trees. This is an albizia of some sort. And I just am going to let this grow because eventually I might actually use this for a chop and drop, let it get tall enough. It could be a living post right here in the middle of it, and I'll just keep cropping the top at 6 feet and letting beans grow up it. I could put strings on it and grow vines of yams or anything else over it, passion fruit, whatever. But when I see something like that, I'm like, oh, that's useful. I'm going to keep that weed. That's actually going to be useful for me later. These amaranth that my wife just cut for dinner, these will grow back and bush out. And these are going to last a few months before they give up. But they are an annual. And they're going to later be replaced with something else. We'll chop them down and drop them and reset this bed later. But this right here is a Moringa tree, which is a really useful edible tree, edible leaves. It's medicinal, it makes good tea, super high in minerals, good for protein. This one's coming up through the middle. This will be canopy. So here's canopy, canopy, and then there's a banana for canopy there. And then here, look at, here's another replacement in the shrub layer. This amaranth is our shrub layer right now, but when this gives up, this is a short-lived perennial. This is Hibiscus aceticella, the cranberry hibiscus, which has nice edible leaves. It's very pretty, very ornamental, but it's a good salad green, very tart, kind of tastes like an instant Caesar salad. So that will be shrub layer underneath these, and then we come back through here and we stick something else in. And look it, I've even got other things coming in here already. You see this? This is a cassava cutting right now. So I'm planning the next bit in the succession. These guys are out of here by the time this one's starting to fill out. This guy's going to be this tall. This will be like this tall. The cassava's pushing its way through, and bit by bit we've got another thing. And then at the end of a year, I could pull the cassavas out of here and put this back to a really light, loving plant. I could put cabbages in here. I could put just about anything. I could put bush beans back in here to add nitrogen to the soil. So you're always cutting and dropping and cutting and dropping. I don't really do very much tire gardening, but I have decided that having some tires with some dirt in them around where we're walking and living a lot of the time is a great spot to start seedlings and then you just go over the entire garden. You just go by and you find a packet of seeds and you just throw a bunch of seeds on top of there and crumble them in and forget about them. And then a couple of weeks later, you got a whole bunch of seedlings, and then you can go in and dig them out and stick them into your regular gardens whenever you think about it. Like right now, when it's the nice cool part of the evening. I'm so tired of pak choi. At the beginning of Corona, or a little bit before, we were like, let's grow some pak choi. That's really good and healthy stuff. And then we found out the kids didn't actually like it. And you get tired of eating it. You know, when you put in like 70 plants and you think, I shouldn't have done that. Well, now I've still got pak choi and I haven't planted it in forever. It just keeps going and going. So if you want a really good green that you're gonna get sick of, pak choi, it's fantastic for that. But what I do now is I just go, hey, look at that. That pak choi, that's healthy. Here, eat that, Pepper. Good job. So in this bed here, we've got our canopy, and our short-term canopy is actually this papaya right here, because this is only going to live a year or two, and it's going to make a lot of fruit. They can make 200 pounds in 2 years, which is cool. But then right here, I've got a cocoa plum. And that cocoa plum, I really like cocoa plum. So that's a long-term perennial that is useful. It's edible, it's beautiful, and it's a place for predatory insects and things to hide. And then we throw in all these blooms, like we've got the marigolds. We had some issues with nematodes, so hey, let's throw some marigolds in. If you believe it hard enough, it works. And then right here, see, we've got our zinnias and then more canopy. And then if you come back here, see, this is short-term canopy, but then in a couple of years, this guy right here is going to be canopy. This is a Suriname cherry. This is the black Suriname cherry variety, which is really good and sweet. And down here on the ground, because I wanted to build the soil up, I wasn't that happy with it, we threw all kinds of scrap stuff from the kitchen. You know, there's paper scrap, there's eggshells, and all these things. And then bit by bit, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna throw some more grass on top. I'll throw some more weeds on top of it. Every time I chop and drop, kind of go through here and open up some light, I can just throw these things on the ground and let them rot down and keep building that soil up over time. And as you come further down, because we were dumping kitchen scraps in here, we have pumpkins. I have no idea how we're going to keep these pumpkins under control, or if I'm going to even try, or just let them run everywhere. But pumpkins really, really, really like to run, and they root at all the joints. So if your pumpkins are out of control, you can always turn them around, but you got to stay on top of it like regularly, or it's ridiculous. These tomatoes here are giving up. These are getting old, and insects have been getting them. So I can say, all right, that is going to be fed to this little banana right here. And if this banana gets run over by something I don't care about so much, like, hey, let's eat that pumpkin leaf. There you go. You eat that pumpkin leaf too. This is more important than the pumpkin. The pumpkin's going to be gone in 140 days or so. This guy's going to be here for a few years. So as we come down, there's more pumpkin. Get in here, and the weeds pop up occasionally because there's still a lot of light in right here, but once the pumpkins take over, that's not going to be the case. And the sweet potatoes, same thing, they'll run over stuff. This is a limeberry right here, which is an edible fruit that tastes terrible. And then as you come back here, I've got these little trellises which were holding these insane cherry tomatoes. These cherry tomatoes are about done. They could all be ripped down. I can just go like, take you out right through the middle here, smash you down, and then discover that I have another future canopy thing right here. Look at this. So smack those guys down, and then I have got a mulberry. So this system of always dropping the stuff on the ground to rot, you get lots and lots of life in the soil, and the worms are very happy with it. And then this guy is eventually going to be canopy in right here, and these guys get cleared out. I'll harvest the sweet potatoes. We could put another round of annuals in there, or go with something perennial, or whatever we want to do. Just keep moving along, but it's still all in that 4-foot bed, 2-foot wide paths. So here again we have canopy, this Cavendish banana, and then our sub-canopy of cassava, and then down here this is also sub-canopy too. This is tobacco. So this tobacco is going to grow up here, and eventually it's going to get too tall. I'm going to top it, feed it to there. Later in the year I'll be harvesting cassava, and I could when the cassava comes out and the tobacco is done, something else comes in, but these guys are going to stay here for a few years. And if these bananas start to spread and we get a big clump, we'll divide that clump up. We'll just pull them out. We'll take some of them and give them to our neighbors. We'll plant them at church or whatever else. This, for a time, is going to fill in here. And if the leaves get too big, too much cover, so nothing is going in the shade underneath, we'll cut half the leaves off and we'll feed them to the ground. We just want to make sure we're getting a good bit of bananas, but we also have enough light underneath. Now, this sort of system, if you were in a temperate climate, you might be looking at different species for your canopy. You would obviously be looking at different species. You would do something like a Nanking cherry might be one of your canopy ones. You might have some Jerusalem artichokes in clumps here and there. They could be canopy. And then underneath you would have a sub-canopy. Maybe you would have some of your towering herbs. You could put down on the ground. You can do sweet potatoes, or you could do white potatoes, or you could do bush beans. You just kind of think and say which things would fit in each layer. If you've got plenty of sunshine, you can do this. If you don't have plenty of sunshine, don't do this. If you're in an area that doesn't get a lot of sunlight, don't do this sort of thing because it's not going to work very well. Only your canopy and your sub-canopy will probably do well, and the ground cover layer is not going to work. But here, where we have tropical sun, I can cut a lot of light down and still get decent yield. So I hope this is inspiring to you, and that you could see you can vertical garden in a permaculture style without absolutely killing yourself to do it by building a whole bunch of stuff. It's a very inspiring garden. I'm having so much fun. If you want to learn more about this, you can go to my website, thesurvivalgardener.com. Look up Ernst Goetsch and what he's doing. Look up James Prigioni. I mean, he's got his trees and other things underneath. There's a lot of people that are doing this and experimenting with these multi-level systems. And if you do a really cool garden, please send me pictures. I'll catch you all later. And until then, may your thumbs always be green. Right on. That's nice. This is my permaculture garden where I just randomly murder plants on film.